Welcome, everybody, to Write Better Together. I'm John Myers. Hey, look, everybody, it's Emily Brooks.
Hello, John Myers. And hey, look, everybody, it's Stephanie L. Jones.
Oh, wow. That you'd think I'd get used to it, but there went Emily again.
I
What?
know. Gone, and
What
here I
the-
am. Here I am.
Hi, Stephanie L. Jones.
Hi, John Myers.
What are we talking about today?
Oh, we have quite the list today. So
Oh.
we have Cathy Schraibman. She is going to be talking about author branding and why we still need to take pen to paper. And then we'll talk about how we got out of our bubble this past week. You have listener responses. Obviously, we'll have our discussion with Cathy, her call to action. And then we have Hey John Myers. Then we have What the Bee. We always love to talk about what we read. And then we will do the final act in the game, which this week is with Misty L. Butler. So exciting.
And we had a secret episode of What the L after What the B.
Yes, we did, right?
Who knew that was coming? So tell us how you got out of the bubble first.
Yes. Well, just this last 3 days, I was in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Oh.
And I took my niece up there. She has an orientation for a summer internship. And so while she was, doing her orientation, I did two cool things that I think are author writing related. Is one, I took a tour of Our Daily Bread Ministries. So they're the ones, that make the little devotionals, but they do so much more. They have a publishing company, so they've got books. They do a lot of video and podcasting. And anyways, that was fabulous. I recommend. You have to call at least 24 hours in advance to go on the tour. But I recommend if anybody's in Grand Rapids to go on that tour. It was fabulous. So I did that. And then Baker House Books has a bookstore, a Christian bookstore in Grand Rapids. And so I went there and spent time at the bookstore and the cafe, and I bought 11 books.
11 books. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of how I got out of the bubble. What about you?
So how did I get out of my bubble? I will show you.
Oh, you got ice cream?
Yeah, that's me driving back with ice cream dripping down my hand. It's me in my car driving back from the ice cream shop. Guess what flavor that ice cream is?
Vanilla?
And what the tie-in to this show is?
Vanilla?
Nope. I'll give you 3 guesses.
Butter pecan?
Nope.
It looked like cake.
So that's my favorite flavor. It's birthday cake or red velvet cake,
yeah.
But it's not that either. It's a flavor I've never had in my entire life. So it's a first, and I'm at least half as old as you are. And so imagine living your whole life and having the chance to try a new flavor.
Yeah, exciting.
It's related to this from a previous episode.
Oh, yeah, I can't remember what that was.
These are Pussy Willows.
Yes.
No, it is not Pussy Willow flavored ice cream. It was honeysuckle.
Oh,
and
interesting.
And so it was from the local ice cream shop at my undisclosed location. The day it was released, the line was so long, I couldn't even, you already know I won't wait in line, but I couldn't get in the line if I wanted to. It was so long. So I went back the next day and there was only a couple people in line. And the honeysuckle was grown in the same nursery as those Pussy Willows that I showed on a previous episode. So it was meant to be that I could taste. It was from the same farm is where they grew the honeysuckle. And that's where, because this ice cream place only uses local ingredients.
Oh, I love that. That's
what do you think?
cool.
Have you had a honeysuckle ice cream?
No, but I used to love honeysuckle as a kid. I would love to find and get the little thing. And yeah. So, but I've never heard of honeysuckle ice cream.
So was it good to suck on a honeysuckle?
Yeah, I loved it.
Wow, I didn't know that. You don't know this, but on a future episode, Justin Peters, his call to action on an episode with Bob was to go out in your backyard, pull a leaf off of every tree, and come in and research what it is, what the leaf is, because people don't know what trees are in their own yard.
Yeah.
And so you sucking on a leaf made me think of that.
Make sure you don't get some poison ivy.
And I said, make sure you look up those leaves in Encyclopedia Britannica and not use you
An
know what.
app.
Yes. All right.
Hey, John Myers. So let's hear listener responses.
I thought you said, "Hey, John Myers." I'm like, it's time for "Hey, John Myers" already.
No, not yet. Not yet. We will get there.
So
We will get there, though.
on the YouTube, responding to the Paul Gay episode from last summer, was YouTuber at VR2374DH. You know her, right? Is this one of your personal friends?
No, I don't think so.
She sounds like she might be a robot. So she responded to the Paul Gay episode where we were celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Little Rascals. And she says, please, I want to see behind the scenes of the movie even more and how the cast was, which he already had told a few stories about behind the scenes because he was on set for part of it, and which is rare for a screenwriter, but not unheard of. So, being the magnanimous guy that I am, I went and found some more behind the scenes clips, and but
Look how
so,
cool you are.
I know. And so, do you know what Video Village is?
Mm-mm.
So the Video Village is like you shoot a scene and then you run over to the tent and you look and see what you just shot to make sure that you have. So I found some of those scenes, one in particular, and so I shared that came from someone had posted it, worked on the in the Video Village. And plus Paul Gay told a story about the line that they cut from Mel Brooks appearance, so I gave her those, and she's like, but I want more with Darla.
Everybody loves Darla, right?
I'm only one man. VR23476DB. I'm only one man.
Hey, you won't like that I'm saying this, but I'm going to. Since we're talking to Cathy today about AI, maybe this is an area where like you could use AI to say, "Can you find me?"
Yeah, and know what it'd give me? It'd give me Stuart Little, little this, little that. It
Right.
would give me people riding on their rascal through the grocery store. It would not give me what I wanted. And since you brought that up, you're like, I use Grammarly because I'm dyslexic. Well, Grammarly existed before there was AI. I can't help it that people are adding AI to Google and stuff, right? But that's a great example, like autofill or spell check on your texting, right? That's the number one use. Everyone has used spell check on their texting for the last 15 years. Oh, that works so well, doesn't it?
No,
It can
it doesn't even. I spell so bad that it used to never even catch what I was trying to write. And I'm like, it'd say no replacements. I'm like, I know, because I can't even figure out how to get close to the word.
AI is going to take over the world. It can't even spell John Myers. Can't spell John, can't spell Myers right after 15 years of me using the same phone. Well, not the same phone for 15 years. All right. Don't get me
Okay.
riled up again.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else on your listener responses?
I would ask you, what is you have 9 books, right? And so you have an
Mhm.
interaction with your community, and then you have interaction with people outside of your community.
Yep.
What, and I asked Kirsten Modulin the same thing. How at some point there's too many people to answer. And she has 46,000 followers, and and she answers them all herself, man. You think I don't ever sleep? She answers every text, every email, every in her K-Mod squad, every all the social medias. She answers them all personally. At what point is it too much?
Well, I think every individual has to decide. Like, I'm nowhere near as big as Kristen. And yeah, I still like that personal touch because at the end of the day, I'm like, if it's not for the reader, the people that's following you, then why do what you do? And I've heard that from like I have an acquaintance and he has over 1 million and he still does his own social media, because he's like, I want it to be authentic to me and my voice. And he will usually be the one responding, like if you send him a message about something. So, but I think I guess here's my like thought is, let's say I got so big, John Myers, that I couldn't handle everything. I wouldn't just want to give people canned answers, unless they're messaging you like, where can I buy your book, or where are you speaking, or something, where you could have an intern or somebody going like, oh, here's the link to your book, or here's the link to your next speaking. But I think if it was somebody really asking you something thoughtful, or they needed help with, like, I just couldn't have. So then I think you get into that area of like, do you just not respond, or I don't know.
So I don't like the not responding.
Yeah, I do
And
too. I don't like that.
and I like responding. So I'm not in. There are people who don't like responding to all of it, and I like to responding all of them. But there is a thing of, if you get to, there were times when the book came out where I couldn't keep up, and it was just a little old us, right? And I could not keep up if I was K-Mod. But getting back to the guest, if your brand is specific enough and well defined enough, I guess it's better to say than specific. Like with Jammin', he has Kevin Lewandowski and his wife Cynthia and Phil Hudson. Anyway, they know what Michael's going to answer, right? They're not pretending they're him. We just know that Kevin is going to answer, or
Right.
Cynthia's going to answer, and then if Michael answers, which he answers when it's specifically to him, he'll say, "Hey, it's Michael," and da da da. And so it's okay to have a team when they know what your brand is, I think.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. And I like the idea, like you said, is like, that it's not the person who's responding. Like if someone on my team, let's just use Sarah, because she's, she does stuff for me, is like, you knew it was Sarah responding, hey, it's Sarah on Stephanie's team, and not going back to, I think we've had this theme of authenticity, and people want to be authentic. And so I think that's an area of like, if it's not you, just say it's not you so people know.
Or when it starts with Michael believes that blah blah blah, it's not Michael. It's
Right.
it's one of them.
Yeah. Okay, so today we have quite the guest. I already said it's Cathy Schraibman, and she is the founder of Brand Maker Media and also the Brand Maker Method. She's an author, speaker, brand strategist, and TV and content producer. And she helps entrepreneurs share their voice, build powerful brands, and amplify impact. And she is going to be talking with us. Also, she's got like 3 journals that she is releasing. And fun fact about Cathy is she was a TV producer on Bravo's Top Chef and The Bachelorette. So looking forward to the conversation.
Cool. And we're back. I'm still John Myers. It's still Stephanie L. Jones. I know you just read the introduction, but who is this person? Where'd she come from?
It's Cathy Schraibman.
Cathy? Before we started, you had a microphone in front of you, and then you hid it away. And so why do you have this professional looking podcaster microphone, first of all, before we dig in deep?
Well, I'm not sure y'all talked about it, but I am a producer behind the scenes, and I'm quite an audiophile. So I love really good equipment. So I have a microphone here that I use for my own podcast. And I have a podcast for myself, but mostly just to practice being on, speaking in the media. I think it's a good practice. So I just started a podcast so I could practice speaking, getting myself out behind the scenes a little bit. So I have a microphone and a little setup over here in my office.
Okay, now I'm confused because you said this was your first podcast, and now you tell me you have your own podcast.
It's my first guest podcast.
Oh, so what's your podcast called?
It's called Build Your Brand from Action to Impact.
Oh.
We've done 12 episodes.
And when are you having John Myers and Emily Brooks and or Stephanie L. Jones on the podcast?
Let's book it. No pun intended.
I love it.
Emily, in case you don't know, she was with us for the first 59 episodes. She's half of Write Better Together, and she's my co-author on this book and on the next book, Write Anyway, too. But she's on maternity leave now. And so, gosh, dig in, jump in. I want to talk about the podcast, but that's not why she's here.
can talk about a lot of things.
Okay, so this is how, I want to just set the stage for the audience because Cathy, John Myers and I did an episode on like no coincidences. And so Cathy and I met, which I think it's good of like having courage and just asking. Cathy and I were in a coaching group with Jesse Itzler, and he was doing an event up at his house, and they sent out a list of like everybody that would be coming and flight. You could put in like your flight times. And I saw Cathy on the list, and she was like one of the only ones flying into the airport that I was flying. And I didn't really want to rent my own rental car and drive. And so but I saw that Cathy was like, when I Googled her, because it's like, I don't just want to get in a car with a stranger. I saw she was like this reality TV producer and some of these big shows, like The Bachelorette and The Top Chef. And I was like, I can't reach out. Like, this lady is too cool. But I did. And she ended up getting a car, and she drives great in the rain. And we just like hit it off, didn't we? Like,
We did.
whole drive together. And so I just wanted to give that little background of like, we became friends after that weekend, but it was like me just having a little courage, reaching out, and then we've been in touch and friends, like good friends over the last probably 3 years since we did that retreat. So
ever since, yeah.
That needs to be on. That needs to be a book blurb on a future jacket. Stephanie L. Jones says she drives great in the rain.
It was pouring down rain. I made you go to Starbucks and get out in the rain and run it.
Did
But yeah, we've been good friends ever since.
So I want to explore this moment for a minute. So a similar thing happened to me at a total stranger, Carrie Drobin, who has a podcast. She's been on a ton of reality TV shows because her thing is she was a lawyer. She's been on A&E and just every different true crime show that you can as an expert. And she's also an expert on narcissism. And so I was at her she came to one of my sessions. I was at one of her sessions, and she said something that she was like an hour and a half late or something getting there because her Uber never showed up at the airport. And then at the awards banquet 3 days later, I just went up to her, and she had her suitcase with her. And I'm like, do you need a ride to the airport? Because is that why you have your suitcase with you at the awards banquet? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, go cancel your Uber because I'll take you. And then now we're friends, and she's been a guest on the podcast, and she has a new book coming out. And so when you said you were intimidated by Cathy, but you did it anyway, I want you to talk about that moment and and then I want Cathy to talk about how she diffused the intimidation.
Well, Cathy probably didn't know I was intimidated.
Well, she does now.
I know, but I just felt like, wow, somebody that's been a TV producer, and you just build people's titles up without even knowing them. And so I think that was like, and Cathy I have no reason to be intimidated. She's like so kind, so sweet, like very friendly. I think that's just why, like, titles, if you really think about the titles that we put on people, that can be barriers for developing friendship. And so I'm grateful that I didn't let like her title that I saw go. Yeah, like she probably didn't want to tote me around.
And well, I was glad you called because I had to drive. We were flying into an airport I'd never been to, driving to Jesse Itzler's house by myself. I was glad you called. So it worked out really good.
It's not a competition, but who's helped who more in the last 3 years?
I would say Stephanie's been helping me edit another book that I am writing. She's been amazing.
I would say we both. Cathy is, especially from like a branding or just having questions. She always gives me great feedback. Cathy's been working on 3 different book and journals. I would consider them more of like interactive journal books. I've been able to go with her throughout that whole journey. But Cathy, do you want to talk a little bit about like why, well, like what the journals are, but then really why did you want to create them for people?
Well, why don't I start with why I started it, the idea?
Yeah.
Okay, so in building your brand, I help experts build their brands, and I have a 5-step process. So I had done a course. Usually you have the book first and you have your IP, and then you create content from that after you have your book, and you can use it to whatever you're going to be doing, speaking on stages or using it for social media. But I already had a course with my 5-step process. So I was turning that into a book. So I transcribed all the videos and took all the text from it and was trying to combine it using ChatGPT. And I had never used ChatGPT before. And I realized how hard it was, because every time it gave me an option, it was getting further and further away from my voice. And then it would give me more options. So I was just going down a rabbit hole, hours and hours of trying to get the verbiage the way I wanted it for that particular book. And that's when I reached out to Stephanie. I'm like, can you help me edit this? Because it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to do that alone. This is my first book. So it made me realize that when we're using ChatGPT or Claude.ai, that we're giving away our own power and our own creativity to the computer, and that I can only see it escalating. So I thought, while I'm writing the other book, I thought of this idea to have prompts for humans, and it's kind of a joke, but actually, as I got more into it, I came up with the idea of think space, a space, and a prompts for humans, a space to maintain thinking, and just getting off of the computer, getting off of our screens, pen to paper, and writing. So it started with that, prompts for humans. And I ran it by Stephanie, and she goes, that's a great idea. So I came up with 2 more.
So we purposely have not talked about this on the podcast because I want to avoid the controversy, but that falls totally in line with, you probably already know this, but there's been, since the first of the year, so I don't even go back to old studies, but since the first of the year, there's 5 different studies, Carnegie Mellon, the school in Switzerland, the school in Tokyo, that using what you just did caused brain atrophy. Like, it causes a loss in confidence. It causes a loss in cognitive skills. So yeah, shut it off, take the pen and paper and go be a human to connect with other humans. And so yeah, that's fantastic.
Well, loss of confidence, because you might be a great writer and you write a sentence, but now it seems like everyone has a tendency to run it through ChatGPT. Do you guys ever feel that way?
No.
You're just going to run it through?
I
see
don't
it.
in my
No.
writing, because I think as
Yeah.
writers, if you're a writer and author, at least this is just my opinion, is it's a slippery slope. And so
It
you
is.
have to have boundaries. You know, I love to use it more as like a Google, you know, like John Myers knows if somebody will say something, I'm like, let me check that, or let me pull the data or that. But I think it's a slippery slope when you start running like your writing, and because then it's no longer like your writing, like you said, your voice. And so I've just had to put a boundary around how I use it and what I use it for.
And these aren't little dinky studies of 36 creative writing students in one class. These are like 1,200 students, 670 students, and if you're robbed of your confidence, if something causes brain atrophy, now you've gotten me started, Cathy. We put warning labels on alcohol. We put warning labels on cigarettes because it could cause brain damage. But we don't. But then you all are hopping in there, putting your sentences in ChatGPT without it. There's no warning label.
Well, there is that. I like to say that if I use ChatGPT as a tool and you be the creator versus you giving it prompts and it's the creator. So I think it's really important to differentiate there. For my business, I do use AI to save time for editing and for other things that do not relate to writing books.
I wish my head could rattle so the people listening to this on Spotify and on iTunes can hear how bad my head is shaking. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but when it robs, I teach a college, right? When it robs my students of we have professors that say, I want to use it for writing prompts, but I don't want my students to use it to answer the writing prompts. Well, then you shouldn't be a professor. I'm sorry. And
Yeah.
I'm in creative writing pedagogy groups where people will post that. How can I create a prompt in Chat GPT so my students won't notice? Well, you should. Your department head should see you and fire you, because that's not what they hired you to do.
Well, I don't
I
think that's
agree with
what
you.
Kathy's. Yeah,
Let me
maybe
give
No, I
you
not at
know.
all. I think
I
I'll give
know,
you
you're
an
but
going
I'm
down a
example.
saying
rabbit hole,
why I'm
John.
shaking my head so much.
Well, let me give you a better example. So I had a client who did a video, and it was a great video, but she was looking off to the side. So we ran it through v.io and just had her eyes facing forward. But that was just a mistake, best practices that we used AI for, not for creating content and writing content, just to differentiate what I'm referring to.
But the tools, the tools not creation thing is bogus. I have a publisher that I know is watching this, and not my publisher, who's watching this, who has started using it for his book covers. No, 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 no. You've been publishing for how many years, and you are now unemploying a real book artist. I just paid
Yeah.
my book artist in the Netherlands a nice check, and I'm
Mhm.
happy to do it, because I'm no, we don't unemploy people to
Mhm.
to use ChatGPT.
Well, today I have an artist who's a graphic artist who's working on my book cover for Idea Space, which is we're loading tonight, hopefully on Amazon. And we used ChatGPT to give us the dimensions and what the spine was, so we'd have the exact dimensions for the book layout, and then we used our own creativity and designed the cover, and she's just laying it out according to the dimensions. But we did use ChatGPT to get the right dimensions for her.
Okay.
So I think you're not a fan of that.
After
In the right, I think
after
using
it
it as
gave you the wrong answer 7 times, you finally got the right answer. You could have looked it up on the
yeah,
terms of
well, sure.
yourself and got the right answer in the first try. All right, continue.
John Myers, gosh,
John
stop.
Myers, you're a tough one.
I
That's why we don't
know.
talk
I
about
mean,
it.
in the business I'm in, if we don't stay up to date with some of the tools, you just get kind of left behind. People always wanted to save time, but I'm a very big advocate. And the reason why I wrote these 3 journals is get off the computer, do your writing on your own, pen to paper, which I'm still a big believer in that. So the second one, I created a story space. And a lot of us were consuming stories on screens and Netflix and other ways. A lot of us aren't writing down our own stories. And I feel strongly that we all have a story to tell and that we don't write or tell our own stories. So I created Story Space, and it's a space to write your stories. And you don't have to write them out, you can bullet point them. And then you can categorize them. So if you are writing a book or doing an article or speaking, that they might be categorized by taking a big risk or doing your first podcast or whatever it is for you, so that if the topic comes up for a speech or an article, that you'll have stories already ready to go that are your stories. And that, to me, that's a great differentiator. uh, AI can't take our stories and our experience away from us, and we really have to dive deep into that and lean into it and keep the human, like you said, John Myers. See, I agree with you.
The other thing is, I have to clarify something I said. I said we never talked about it. We talked about it briefly on the episode with Emily Norman, because she is a human being voice artist that does audiobooks. And as you know, if you've written any book, you're being pummeled by let AI narrate your book for you.
Yes.
And I was at a conference in November where I'm not going to name them. At the time when of that episode, I had forgotten their names, and I've now looked them up, where 2 competing production houses, one the biggest in the world, and then one that was fairly big, where they supply voice artists, right? And the biggest one, doesn't matter where you're at. You be in Minneapolis, they got a recording studio. You can be in Valparaiso, Indiana, they got a recording studio in Indianapolis. Within 3 hours, you can go to a recording studio and have a professional record it. They have both. One had finished their study, and the other house was in the middle of their study, but the halfway through findings had confirmed the other companies that finished their findings. When content is created by AI or is narrated by AI, you get 1 sale. Because they can track how far it goes in the audiobook. If it's being narrated, people aren't finishing that book, and they take it out on the author. And so they now have statistics where you just won't buy that author's next 8 books because there's something about the uncanny valley that a normal civilian on the street doesn't know why, but they know that there's something odd about it. It's like the first time we saw Polar Express. Now we're kind of used to it, but the first time we saw Polar Express, the people just looked weird and the polar bears looked weird. But now now it's a Christmas tradition. People get used to it, but they're putting it down. And this other study, and so these two people were competitors, and the other woman was like, "Our study's showing the same thing, that they won't finish the book when AI is narrating it. So that you can't let AI tell your stories."
Yeah,
All
I
right,
agree.
continue.
It's too easy now. If you go into any editing program, the first thing you see is an avatar to create an avatar over yourself. I don't know what your viewers will think of that, but I just feel like I'm not ready for that. I like the human to human connection in the
Correct.
voice, audiobook, or whatever.
Now continue.
So you
I
have
agree.
story, Cathy. I wanted to tell you because Cathy and I, besides working on her books, is we worked on. Well, we're still working on getting her a TEDx talk, but working on like her signature talk, and her story is amazing and it needs to be told. But Cathy, do you want to share like a little bit about your story? But it came from you writing it down and journaling, and kind of where you went from when you were in sales to like
Mhm.
how you got to where you were. Because I think it's fascinating, and I always think it's good for the listener of like that stepping out in faith and doing things that maybe seem very different but intriguing.
Yeah. So if anyone out there has ever had an idea and it was just impossible to make it happen, that's where this story starts. And I literally I was in South Carolina in sales doing a great job, and I had everything was going great in my life. There was no reason for me to make a change, but something inside of me, which is kind of leading back to the books, the story space, idea space, and think space, something inside of me kept calling me to move across the country to get into TV production. And I didn't understand it because it didn't make sense. I was happy and had everything I needed. So I was writing that down in journals that I wanted to travel the world. I wrote down different places I wanted to go and that I wanted to be a TV producer. And it was even more detailed than that. And I was writing it down. But there's absolutely no way for it to happen. And I think a lot of people feel that way where they're stuck and they don't see a way to get out of it. So
Can I pause there real quick?
yeah,
Is
sure.
even when you wrote down like being a TV producer, is you had no experience in that, right?
I had no experience. I was in South Carolina and all the TV was in LA. And I didn't want to move to LA at the time. It wasn't even conducive. I didn't know one person. So I started writing down, I kind of used the method that I have in idea space. I started writing down actions and collecting information. But just the act of writing it down, I think something magical happens when you write it down. Because cut to 3 years later, I'm living in Aspen, Colorado, and within 6 months of being there, there was a reality show filming where I lived, and so I was able to get a job on that show, and then they took me out to LA for another show. So, and then I met people that wanted to travel. So all of it ended up happening, but I really think it started with having an idea and writing it down and really listening to your innermost thoughts. I think sometimes we bury them, and especially we get lost in the noise of the world and we just let it go. And if you write them down, there's something that clicks.
I love that. And so Stephanie and I are going to talk about later about this concept of already not yet. When you got that first job, when that traveling offer, when the traveling production came,
Yeah.
you thought I'm there, right? And you didn't know
Yeah.
that it was going to lead to the next job and to the next job. So you were already there on the first job, but then it was not yet because there was a lot more in store.
Well, I'm a big believer in seeing it before it happens. So I did see it. I knew that it was going to lead to more. I just knew it just inside. But when it showed up there, I don't even know if I was surprised. I just asked for a job. So I got a job. And then I knew I was going to, get to know the producers on that show. And then they asked me to come out to work on another one. But I also think the enthusiasm I mean, I was very excited to be part of it. So, that's contagious. I think people like that, and
About
they,
3 minutes
people
into your
prefer that.
interview, you were like, "Yeah, I knew you guys would be coming here. I wrote it down in this journal 3 years ago." I
No,
love that.
I mean, I think things happen, but I wouldn't have noticed that they were there maybe if I hadn't written it down, right?
um Kathy, I want to go back to something you said, like lost in the noise of the world. And I
Mhm.
think that it's another reason why this idea of taking pen to paper and writing down your stories, writing down your ideas is so important. But it's also like doing it and disconnecting, like getting away from the phone, getting away from your technology, because
Mhm.
I think a lot of times is we can't I think we're all people of faith. It's like it's hard to hear wherever God's calling you if the because the world is so
Mhm.
noisy. And I think what you're creating is that ability to take that journal, but then kind of walk through the steps that you have and then keep doing it. And that's one thing, is you've been journaling forever, so it just wasn't
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm just doing this once. Is tell us a little bit about like your practice and your discipline of journaling and continuing to write your stories.
Yeah, so I started journal. I was making up shows when I was 3. My best friend and I would put on shows, and we even did them with the video cameras before the sound. I can show my age here. But then I was writing in journals. I was going through a storage unit this past week, and I have a whole row of shelf just filled with notebooks that I used to write down my stories. But also, and really, it didn't happen until when I was out of college. I started writing down what I wanted to do, and but the journaling started early, just writing down stories. And have I told you this, Stephanie? My ninth grade teacher marked up all my papers and took away the love of writing from me. Because I think I was a writer. My name means scribe, I think, in German.
Mm.
Somebody told me that it means to write, and I always had that inclination I would be a writer. And then, yeah, I just marked up my papers, and I was done. It's too hard. I didn't want to. I was done. So I stopped writing, and that's a shame that that happened.
We
That
were we were at a book. Emily and I were at a book signing in October, and we had a dozen probably. We talked to 300 people that weekend, and a dozen people probably said, "I went to school to get my MFA, not when they're 9 years old or in ninth grade even, and
yeah.
and my professors ruined it. Like I don't even want to be a writer. So it's our job to encourage them to be writers again. And there's something about when you write it down in a journal or anywhere, when you write it down, it's it's this inexplicable thing that sets this mechanism in action that once it's
Mhm.
concrete and you've written it down, it happens. You're also, besides the fact that you're not the first time guest, uh, we've had 3 or 4 guests now who performed on a video, made little shows out in the for their neighborhood friends. Some even charge money, and when they were little 5-year-old, 6-year-old kids. So there's something about that creativity from a child, and
Mhm.
not letting that enthusiasm be stripped from you.
Yeah, you have to go back to your roots. Like, what were you doing when you were 3 years old to remember what you like to do, right?
Yeah.
Before school gets you. I
I
had great
want
teachers, but
on that like kind of topic on video is I want to flip a little bit about, because you are known as the brand maker. You have a company, Brand Maker Media, and video is very big now. And you do a lot on YouTube. And so like from that standpoint, can you talk about like what's important, especially for authors? Like what can they be doing, what should they be doing? Why is video so powerful? So you go down to we talk about the writing and the journaling, but also we have to, I think, get good at this also.
yeah, I think, I think first of all, and you guys know this doing podcasts, but when you're creating video is when you get even more clear on your message, on your messaging. And once you get a message, I mean, whatever I'm big on aligning your media monetization and message. So before you amplify it, get really clear on it so that you know what you want to say. And practicing on video is one of the best ways to do that. And you can practice, and then you don't have to post, of course, and then practice again. That helps you get clarity. So that's one thing. The second thing, I think YouTube is a search engine. And right now, YouTube is way past. Here's a statistic. I hope I get this right. In Hollywood and wherever across the United States, they're producing 10,000 hours of content that's uploaded, Netflix, the news. On YouTube every day, I think it's 700,000 hours per day are uploaded. So right now, YouTube is a great place to be. It's where people are watching. And if you create a piece of content about yourself that people can go look you up when they Google your name, is the second thing I think is important. And the third thing is to talk about your books. Tell a little bit, like for mine, I'm going to create videos on how to use them. So if somebody wants, and this could be with a product or anything that you have, explaining the behind the scenes story and maybe how to use it. Because the first thing I'll always do is look up how to use something. I just got a standing desk. So my computer's on a standing desk, but I lowered it. I wasn't sure if I was going to stand or sit today. But I looked it up online to see how to put it together and how to use it. So as an author, I think that would be a good idea to tell the behind the scenes story, something interesting about your book. So those are 3 ideas for using YouTube, and then SEO them and make it personable.
There's a chapter in our book. I write standing up as well, and there's a chapter in our book about it. And when I was teaching at university, I had a stand-up desk. I have a stand-up desk here. This is the only time I sit is for the podcast, and I could move over there and stand. But getting back to the YouTube, there's no recent numbers in the last 2 or 3 years, and in the United States, but so even the 3-year-old numbers show that this trend was starting to happen. But in the UK last year, 91% of new adopters of podcasts, like there's still people that don't watch podcasts. Yeah, there still are. They find your podcast through YouTube. Now they might wind up on iTunes, they might wind up on Spotify, but 91% of the people in the UK find it on YouTube.
Well,
it's
that's
the
interesting.
Search engine.
Yeah, and they're watching YouTube on their screens. So like on their TV screens.
Correct.
Which is what I do. So I don't know if this is getting off topic, but yesterday I switched my podcast from Buzzsprout to, which I love, but I switched it to Spotify because Spotify now you can upload a video podcast. I don't know how you upload yours.
On Spotify, on video.
On Spotify. So now it's a video podcast. And of course on YouTube it's a video podcast. And they have a whole selection now, a playlist that is podcast related. So they're catering to that. So you can have your video on the regular channel, but also have it as a podcast. So people can search through podcast. But I watch most of my stuff on YouTube.
Yeah, same. I rarely listen, but sometimes I do in the car.
In the car. I still have it on video playing.
Yeah, I'm the same way. That's funny. Stephanie?
Yeah, no, I just circle back from the very beginning when we talked is, you were like, how has Cathy helped you? I think that's one of just like, she's so good at educating in that piece of the brand and the media. I think she was a bit ahead of time on the YouTube. And so I always think it's important to have people like Cathy in your life, whether you can afford to pay them or you're following them and you're listening to podcasts, because it is important and it's a weakness of mine. And Cathy knows that. I probably drive her nuts, because as creatives, I think we can be a little bit like all over and we get a bunch of ideas, which goes into your idea space of like, hey, at least there's a place for it to land and to kind of organize. But then also thinking about, as an author, like, are you running a business or is it a hobby? And what's your goal? And I think what Cathy offers.
Well, I also think going back to YouTube, you can put your links to your books underneath your videos. And a lot of people use those. I have a client that she just reached out on email and said that every day she gets leads, downloading her lead magnet, of course, and people are booking her consults. So that's another thing. It depends on what you want to do as an author. If you're, Stephanie, I know you do both. John Myers, I'm not sure if you do.
We do both.
But yeah, so underneath your videos, you can have links to book a consult, and it's so easy access. So if they like you, they watch your video, they can click and buy easily. Buy your books.
Yeah, that's a great idea. back to your like journals that you've created, and remind me the one that kind of takes us through, since we're speaking on branding, like the
Mhm.
branding and your method, because I know is I went through it just as I was working on your books with you, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. Not only was it brilliant though, it was easy. And I think sometimes I've worked with branders in the past, and I just felt like it was a very difficult process. I didn't understand a lot of it. So yeah, maybe talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so I've been doing this for almost 15, 20 years. I founded Brand Maker Media about 15 years ago just because people were coming to me and asking me to help them with all kind of things. And so I realized there's a process to follow, and it's 5 steps. You get a clear vision, and they're actually very simple, but put together in this order, they make sense, and they will save you a lot of time. So
Mm-hmm.
the first one is getting a clear vision, and that sounds so simplistic, but if you write down a vision, and that will drive you past your fear. We know, like writing a book and getting on video, the same. The fear will keep you from putting your book out there or putting your video out there. So getting over the fear is getting clear on your vision, and being focused on the impact that you can make. And then the second step is clarifying your message, your differentiating factor. The third step is monetization. A lot of people wait, and like you said, a hobby, is it a hobby or is it a business? So if you're creating content and it's just a hobby, forget this. But if it's a business, build in your monetization and your lead captures first, because when you start getting that traction and pick up some momentum, it'll be there ready for you. So, and then the fourth is to create your message through video, written, books, however you want to create your message. And then the fifth is amplify it. But doing it in that order, I've just seen it so many times. I can give you lots of examples. Will help you, whether you're writing a book or whatever you're doing, will help you save time if you build a good foundation for your brand.
I agree 100% on all 5 steps.
But a lot of people skip the monetization, and they're like, I'm not, they don't see the results, but that's an important one.
As we wrap up here, is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to share with the audience, whether it's advice, any part of your story, kind of any of the processes that you've been working on your 3 journals? Yeah, anything
Yes.
we missed?
I think I have 2 things. So one is, as I'm finishing up my first journal, we're going to load the first one, hopefully tonight, to Amazon. It reminded me of a painting. If anyone out there is a painter, when you paint, you always want to add that one more stroke, and so it's very vulnerable to put out your work. And you guys are so experienced, you may not remember the first time
Oh yeah,
you published,
I
but
do.
it's very vulnerable. And so I find that you always have to put a parameter on when you're going to stop reviewing it and reading it again and just put it out there. So I had to pull myself back today as we finished that. That's one thing. And then
I
the
think
other,
that's important. I want to pause there because Elizabeth Gilbert talks about that in her book Big Magic, and it's actually the reason why how I ended up publishing my first book, because she talks about that like perfectionism. And if you're
Mhm.
always in that like perfectionism, is you will never get your book or your product out there. But it's almost a way, this is my personal, I can't remember if she said this, but it's almost like a way that you protect yourself, because as long as it's not out there, then nobody can judge you, nobody can reject you. If you get no book sales, that you don't know that, like there's all these things that you can protect yourself. So I'm glad you said that, and I'm glad that you shared it personally, like you've been going through that, and then you're like, no, like today is going to be the day, because you can always go back and make edits or changes or whatever. But I think
Yeah.
that's a great point. So
And we also spend so much time consuming other people's content that
mhm.
we forget to put ours out there. And so it's just maybe just getting used to it,
Yeah,
right?
perfect.
Part of
So
it.
viewers that don't know this that are new to us, we have a whole episode on Big Magic with screenwriter Charlotte Winters, and so I'll put the link to that down
Mhm.
here on the screen somewhere. And
I'm gonna
so
watch that.
yeah, Stephanie summarized that quite well. And continue.
And the other thing since we started with AI, is just to remember to use AI as a tool, and you be the human, keep the human side of branding, personal branding and writing, and just use AI as a tool to enhance your workers, save time in other ways, but not in your writing, so that we can hold on to that as long as we can. Right?
Yeah,
It's
I
my
think
it's
that's a
my
tool.
tool to be the lining of my trash can. Does that count for a tool?
We know how
See?
John Myers feels, but I think it is a tool that it's just like anything
Yeah.
else. It would be like Grammarly. I mean, I use Grammarly. I'm dyslexic. I cannot spell to save my life. And,
Mhm.
there might be people who are like, don't use that, but it's a tool and it
Mhm.
helps people. But again, you have to have parameters about how you use the tools with anything. So
Mhm.
I think
Like
that's
apps that help you SEO your YouTube videos.
right.
Use it for that.
Exactly.
I told
Exactly.
I told you we needed to have Emily here to soften the blow of my good cop bad cop thing.
With you.
Do you have a call to action for our viewers?
Sure, I have a call to action. Think of the one big idea that you've been thinking about and
Oh,
write it down. And then after you write it down, before you do anything else, write down 3 action steps that you can do to put it in motion and see what happens. And then comment below and let us know what you did.
I love
yeah.
it.
So how do they tell them how they get it to us, Stephanie?
Yes, they can
That's
comment in the
wonderful.
show notes. Yeah, perfect. I love that. Like it really ties in and wraps a bow. But they can comment in the show notes, in our YouTube videos in the comments, or on Facebook in the comments. And our Facebook is Right Better Together Now.
That's it. That's how you got it. Cool. Thank you, Cathy.
Thank you. Thank you guys. This was fun.
Thank you
It's
so much, Cathy. You did amazing. So great conversation with Cathy,
I
right?
know. She was okay. So I started an email while we were talking. No, while we were on break, and she was the perfect person to broach a subject that I didn't want to broach, right?
Mm,
Her executive producing of reality TV paid off because she let me be me,
mm-hmm.
and I wish that Emily was here to be the buffer because she has a way to buffer, and but Cathy was great because she let me be me and speak my truth, right? And we were agreeing, right? She was saying turn off the computer and write on a piece of paper, and we were the foundational part of the conversation was we were agreeing.
Yeah, and I think too, her one thing I do want to clarify, because she she sent me a text. She's like, I want to clarify this, is when she was talking about the prompts that are in her journals, she didn't get those from AI.
No,
Like
I knew that.
she created, but I think sometimes people will talk about the prompts that you put into AI, and she's like, I just want to be clear, like every prompt in her journals is just like I came up with those.
No, I got
And
that.
she's, yeah, and I just want to make sure like the listeners got that. And you can tell, I mean, Kathy's so authentic, and it's just been fun to see her on her journey and to hear her story. And she's another person too that like practices what she preaches. She's not just creating a journal and books to say, hey, go write. And she's like, no, I've actually been writing for decades, and this is how it's helped me in my life. And the why I wanted her to share her personal story, because she's done some really cool things, but it all started with just an idea and writing it down and okay, what's the next step? So yeah,
What else did she say about me?
literally nothing. I can
Oh my gosh, nothing.
no, nothing.
That's even worse.
She did try to call me though.
I was gonna say, and now we're back for another episode of the Jerry Springer Show. As a former police officer with resources of researching, like when we were talking about Michael Essany the other day,
Oh
why didn't you look him up, man?
yeah,
You
I forgot.
no, but don't you have like sneaky police ways to look him up?
Not anymore. Not anymore. And
Oh,
even when you're a police officer, you usually can't use those unless it's in like as part of your job. You know what I mean? Like you can lose your job if run somebody's license plate that you shouldn't be running their license plate, those sorts of things. So
I'm sure.
there's a lot of parameters around what you can and can't do, unless you want to like get in trouble.
Well, so what? We have to catch Michael Essany in a crime just to find out if he's still around.
No, because I don't have any police powers anymore, but we can probably Google.
Okay, let's make this a goal for you, an objective. I don't believe in goals. I believe in objectives and targets.
Oh, okay.
to track down Michael Essany and invite him on the show.
Okay. I'm right. Making note. How do you even spell his last name? Here's where
Esseny. He needs to come on the podcast, man.
Yeah, depending on what he's doing. Hey, John Myers. Which it goes to how did I got on my bubble? Grand Rapids. So my niece and I we took kind of the scenic route through Michigan and we stopped in Holland. Have you been to Holland, Michigan?
Is that my question?
No.
I was going to say you're supposed to start with a question. Yes, I have been to Holland, Michigan.
Okay, so do you know what Holland, Michigan, besides the tulips, what they're known for?
So,
Like it's the only place in the U.S.
Well, I thought it was they wouldn't be the only one because there's 232 lighthouses in Michigan alone. They have a windmill.
Yes.
And they have wooden shoes. They make wooden shoes there.
It's the windmill. So it is what is it? Dzwan, Zwaan, which meaning the swan. And it's the only authentic working Dutch windmill in the United States.
So the guest that we're talking to, my Tisha and I are talking to tomorrow, which there's no continuity in this show because who knows when that's going to air? Who knows when this is going to air? But
Right.
we referred to a previous Bob episode. Bob episodes haven't even started airing yet. Anyway, the Signa, my artist, she's from the real Netherlands, so we'll have to ask her about the Holland, Michigan.
Yeah, because it was a gift from the Netherlands, and there's even like the way the law is in the Netherlands, like they couldn't be sold, and then they decided there was a negotiation and they sold it. And one of the other things that I loved about, and they sold it because it was like damaged. It wasn't a working one because it was damaged in World War II.
Oh, they sold us a broken windmill, did they?
Yes, but we fixed it. So, and it was, what did I love to read? And then it traveled to the United States. Anyways, I think that's cool. And you can, I don't know. I love that how they have like the parameters around it, but they still gifted it to the United States and to Holland, Michigan. And it's still working and running. And we got to see it spinning. We went up, five floors to see all the little parts and pieces. So anyways, if you ever come back to Indiana, go see the windmill.
I have to drive. If I do, I have to drive through at least 2,300 windmills to go see that windmill.
Oh,
you realize that, right?
Yes, I don't like those windmills.
Why don't you like them?
Because I think they kill birds.
Oh, well, in a future episode, we'll talk about the folklore surrounding them, or any windmill farm. But anyway, I think they should have advertising on them instead of just blank, boring things. They should say like Coca-Cola and Gatorade on them.
Yeah, there you go.
Free advertising.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Something wrong with your wrist?
Oh my gosh. Ooh, there's the bell. What does that mean? It means subscribe to the podcast.
Yes.
Leave us a star rating or a review. And really at the end of the day is we ask people to do this as the giving gal. Like it's a great gift that you can give us. John and I do this, Emily, like we give our time. And if you loved it and got something out of it, if you could review it, because then it helps other people find the podcast.
And it's not just for us. I know I might have said this on an episode with you,
probably,
but I said it on an episode with Bob before that if you're a writer, you participate in the literary community, you participate in the writing community, and so when you're active in the community, then when you have a podcast or when you have a book out, people will want to review your book because you reviewed their book.
Yeah, it's so true though. I mean, it's called the law of reciprocity.
Yeah.
And we don't even think about it, but it's like if somebody does something kind for us, then we're like, oh, I want to do something kind for them. And it just like keeps going as long as we keep, being kind and really, I consider those gifts. I consider writing a review a gift. And I did that on my giving journey, writing a review for a restaurant or making a recommendation. Or my friend at the time, as I was going through, my giving journey, is had a blog. And so it was like recommending his blog. And those are gifts that we can give that don't take a lot of time. They don't take any money, but they make a big difference. So, okay. Next up, What the Bee.
What the bee?
What book did you read this week? Or what are you still reading?
Well, no, I have a new one, but
Oh, good, good,
I
good.
am still reading Stand Up Guy
Okay.
by Nina Kay. Perhaps you've heard of her. You interviewed
Yes.
her.
Oh, one of my favorite interviews. I mean, I'll probably say it with everybody, but I really loved her. I loved how authentic that she was. And I just feel like there's so many lives that she's going to change by that interview. So,
I agree.
very
Again, my
powerful.
head should have rocks in it, so when I nod, you could hear me nodding.
Right.
So, as you know, earlier this year, my father died. And last year, might have been the end of the year before. It was in April, so it wouldn't have been the year before. Anyway, a year or two before that, my mom died. And so my brother, that's up there in your world, is going through and cleaning out the house of all the stuff. And not every day, he's done a lot. And he's like, "Sure you don't want this? It's going in the dumpster." And I'm like, "No, I don't want this." And but I got this from that
Oh,
Walt
cool.
Disney Storyland, and it was look at that groovy name tag that I had in there. It was mine when I was 9 years old,
Oh, that's cool.
and when the reason I'm going to tell the story about it, and so there's two reasons. So first of all, it's 55 stories of Walt Disney movies that got converted into stories, that the novelization of them.
Right.
And so it's what I'm doing. My screenplay is turning into a novel. So how appropriate that my
I
brother would
know.
send me this after all of these years. And then
I love that.
two, when I was about 9, I guess, my grandparents, when I was growing up, owned 5 grocery stores. I only remember 2, and I really only remember one. When I was a baby, they sold 3, 4, and 5. When I was old enough to remember, but I vaguely remember. I remember the magazine and the comic book rack. That's all I remember of that one. That's when they sold the second. When they only had 2 left, they sold number 2, but I remember the one that they had left, and I worked in it as this little 9-year-old kid. Don't say anything, but yes, this used to have to stamp the prices on the cans, man.
Oh,
That
yeah.
that was my job, and so they made a deal with me that if I worked 90 days in a row, this is little 9-year-old John Myers. This is where I got my work ethic. 90 days in a row, I got paid $1 a day, by the way, and they would double it and take me to Disney World.
Oh.
Whoa, that's pretty nice, right? And so for a 9-year-old back then when they were still stamping cans with the stamper, $180, that was a lot of money. I could buy a lot with $180. And so uh and I did not miss a day in 90 days in a row. We went to Disney World. That's where I learned how to swim. I ate fish every day. I ate the same thing at the same restaurant where the monorail went through the middle of it. And I ate the same meal every day, and it was amazing. And I bought $180 worth of junk, but I got Walt Disney encyclopedias, and this book was one that I bought on that trip. And I'm sure, let's see if there's a price on it. Back then, like, this book would be $30 now. It's probably only $9 back then. I bought so many books. I was such a nerd. I bought so many books that I couldn't, like, they're like, how are we gonna get these back on a plane, man? You have and I don't remember. I think we shipped them back. I don't remember.
That's
And
funny.
but it was too many. So yeah. So I have started reminiscing by going through this, and the first story was Bambi, Bambi came into the world in the middle of a flower thicket. There's a first sentence from a book. There you go. And I'm still reading the very hot and steamy stand-up guy. What are you reading?
Okay, so I'm listening to, but I love this so much. Okay, this is a good thing. We may have talked about it, we may have not. Do you consider listening to books reading?
Yes, so not only the answer yes is we actually had a whole interview about that with I think it was with when I talked about Emily Norman. Don't quote me on this, but it was one episode and we talked about that, and 100% everyone involved, the guest, Emily, me, we all agree that that's reading.
Yeah. I always differentiate, like, oh, I read this book, I listened to the book, but it counts in what we're doing. So I'm doing Jeremy Renner's
The actor Jeremy Renner.
the actor Jeremy Renner, his memoir, My Next Breath. Are you familiar with his accident that he had?
Nope. All I know is that his acting roles.
Okay, so he owns a house. I think it's Lake Tahoe, and like lots of snow. He has this big snow cat, like huge piece of equipment, and I think it was his nephew. Anyway, something went tragically wrong, and he had to try to jump on the snowcat and stop it. And he didn't, and it rolled over him and crushed him, broke like 38 bone. I mean, so the reason why I wanted to listen to the book is because I saw his interview with I should have written it down. Was it Diane Sawyer? And it was phenomenal. Like, I want to go back and look for that interview and listen to it. But he talked about gratitude a lot in that interview. And so when his book came out, I'm like, I got to listen to this because I wanted to hear the whole story. And it's phenomenal just to think about. I mean, and he does say in there, he does believe that he was divinely saved for a purpose. I mean, most people would not have survived what he survived. And the cool thing too that he talks about is like all his experiences. Like, he even had an experience as a child that he feels like helped him survive while they were waiting on first responders in the helicopter. And he was very thoughtful of like going back and recognizing like this in my life prepared me for this lesson that I learned prepared me for this. And I think we talked about that on a past episode, kind of like mapping out these pivotal things. Or I always like to say is, if you don't think God's working in your life, do that. Go back and look at those things. So
that's one of my life tenets, that
yes.
every moment in your life has led you up to this moment right now.
Exactly. We've talked about that, right?
Yep.
So anyways, I would recommend it. And what I love about the audiobook is he reads it, he narrates it. And I love listening to audiobooks when the author, especially on memoirs, are the ones that narrate the book, because they've got an emotion that just a narrator would not have, that is tied, to what he went through. And, he'll laugh sometimes, or you can tell where he gets, kind of choked up or serious, and his love for his family and his gratitude. So anyways, I think I'm not necessarily the biggest Jeremy Renner like movie fan, but I'm a fan of his life story and what he survived, and him telling the story, how grateful and he is to be alive. So I'd recommend it.
Oh my gosh, it's time for the final act. Now we got another person. Misty L. Butler. You both have an L in the middle. Stephanie L. Jones, meet Misty L. Butler. You two haven't met before.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
It's a
Before we start, play against each other. Guess each other's L. What the L is.
Is yours Lynn?
No. Is yours Lynn?
No.
That's a pretty common one for it.
Leah?
Mm-mm.
Lee?
Did you say Lee?
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you spell it?
Lee?
Mine is actually Leigh.
Oh, okay. So we
Yeah.
both have the same middle name,
I-
different
that's-
spelling.
Oh, do you really? I didn't know that. I mean, I knew Misty's middle name, but I didn't know yours was Lee.
So you're
Yeah.
Lee. Is yours spelled Lee?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Imagine that. Wow.
That's cool.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of What the L? All right. And so what will we be playing this unnamed game so far for Misty? Tell us what we could win.
Okay. So what we can, do you want me to show it?
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to know what I'm going to win, man.
Okay. So this is about to be my next book released.
Oh.
Yes, and if any of y'all tuned in my last children's book, middle grades children's fiction book, was AJ's Quest for the Trophy, and this is the sequel to that, Delilah's Dilemma. So same characters, we've kind of transitioned into another character being the lead, but this is the sequel to that you could win today.
Are they in the same grade?
They're still in the same grade they were in the last book. We're just continuing on with the school year a little bit, some new adventures and new things going on.
And you did not use AI to design your cover.
I did not.
You used a real human.
I used a real human. This was drawn by a former piano student of mine, and I knew at the time that she was just very artistic. I don't know if you can see if there's a glare, but gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I kind of gave her an idea of like, here's what I picture it looking like. I picture this person. She has this color hair. I want her to be in a cheerleader uniform. And she just put it all together. And I just like was so tickled with it.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
Today, Stephanie L. Jones and John Myers will be playing against each other. And the Price is... What did I call it last time? We don't have the rights to say Price is Right.
Yeah,
you had
a clever name for it.
The Price is Nice. Misty represents two organizations that help women. Tell Stephanie about those two organizations, and then I'll say the rules of the game.
Okay, so one of them is called Crowned Free, and the other is Trades of Hope, and they both sell items that are handmade by women coming out of poverty or human trafficking or forced child marriage, just a number of things. So all these women are trained as artisans, and then whatever they make from their pieces, it helps them stay in safe jobs, making fair wages and support their families. So it's just an amazing cause. I think it's so important. I love it.
No, I love that.
So we will be guessing. She's going to show us 3 items that are right there and right in front of us. We're going to guess the price of what those items are. And we're going to guess, she's going to tell us the name of the person who made it. And we're going to guess what country they're from. Oh my goodness. All right, let's go.
Okay. So the first item, you want to know the specific item, right?
Yep.
The first one is actually this shirt I'm wearing.
Oh, hidden in plain sight.
It's called the Wildflower Top. And look at the details on the sleeves.
So pretty.
Yeah. It's a Crown Free piece. So are y'all going to take some guesses about it?
Oh, man.
I will say $35.
I will say $42.50.
Okay. Do you want me to tell you the price first?
Yeah. Say the price and then who won.
Price for this, it's actually on sale right now for $28.
Oh, I won. Is it
So
closest to?
Price. I guess it's the closest without going over. Is that how you're doing it, or?
I would say.
I don't know. You tricked us by putting it on sale, man. Okay, I say Stephanie won that one. All right. Next item up for bids.
Do you want to guess the country?
Oh, yeah, we got to guess the country. What's the name of the woman?
And so this one was actually made by a few different people at this workshop, and I'll let y'all guess which country it comes from.
Okay. I'm going to say... Get closer to the camera again.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Nigeria.
Okay.
I was going to say the Philippines.
Okay, y'all ready?
Yes.
This one's actually made in the USA.
Ah!
Because we have those problems here too. So we also have American-made products. So this comes made from several different women in a workshop here in the USA. So
I love that.
Isn't that great? Yeah. And especially this time of year with like the 4th of July coming up, a lot of people want to support some of the American-made products too. So we also have those.
That's great, and we'll put all the links in the
Yeah.
show notes below for Crown Free and Trades of Hope. All right, next item.
Okay, next item is this bracelet I'm wearing. This is a Trades of Hope item, and I love this. I'm really crazy about the word bracelets right now. It'll probably be in reverse to you all. Are the letters in reverse?
Yeah,
No,
no, it doesn't
ours
say
aren't
hope.
in reverse.
Okay,
You're
awesome.
right. It says Hope.
It's the Hope bracelet.
I love
Any
that.
ideas about it?
$12.50.
People at home, this is why you should use Riverside and not. They don't pay us to say that, but not Zoom because it's not backwards.
That's right.
She said $12.50. I'm gonna go $9.50.
Okay, and this one is actually $21.95. It's all made by hand. So
Yeah.
and what they do is the women who are making the products, they kind of calculate ahead of time what materials they're going to need, how much time it takes, and they set their price up front. Like we make sure that they get the price asking for. Yeah. So who wants to guess the country?
I should have thought about those factors. I was just trying to undercut Stephanie.
Right.
All right, your turn to guess what country first now, Stephanie.
Haiti.
I'm gonna say what I say the first one, Nigeria. I'm gonna go with Nairobi.
Okay, so this was made in the Dominican Republic.
Oh.
And this was also
close.
Yeah.
DR, they're right there next to each other.
There you go. Made by a few different women on a team. And not only does this support the women making the products, but the proceeds from this they use to provide a safe house for rescued women, and where they can get housing and education and trauma counseling and a number of things like that.
I love this game.
I do too. I love it. Okay, y'all want one more piece?
The final item up for bids.
Final item. It's these earrings I'm wearing, and they're really unique, I think. These are they're by Crown Free. Aren't those pretty? They're so different.
Yes.
Fun fact, I don't have my ears pierced.
I don't either.
I will say 23.
I will. What did you say? 23 even?
Yeah.
I'll say 2301.
2301. And these are the Eden earrings. They're 32. And you haven't gotten it yet, have you?
I finally won one. We got to say what country. Eden. So it's going to be...
Uganda.
The first two started with N. So I'm going to... Nice, France. I got three N's.
And those come from India. And like if you browse the site, there's a ton of products from India because the trafficking and poverty is so widespread there. But this particular workshop also offers like free health insurance to the women in the workshop, and they offer an education sponsorship program to help kids be in school and help fight child labor. So just all kinds of tons of amazing causes for each product.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing about them.
Yeah, I love it.
That was great. Where are you?
So I'm actually visiting family in Somerset, Kentucky right now.
Oh.
Last week they had the really bad tornadoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Are they everyone there okay?
Yeah, they're okay here. About a mile from here is really bad. So they were close. Yeah.
Yep. All righty. Thank you, Misty. Do you want to plug anything else?
Well, I've got the book coming out soon. I'll have sometime this year a CD of original songs if y'all want to.
Oh.
I'm excited about that.
That's fun. Can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Cool. Hey, we might as well say the thing now, Stephanie, and tell Misty that we
couldn't have
done it without you.